Da, 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 da,
I like that you grabbed the scariest hat that you could possibly wear.
Okay, but listen, so these are my hat options, all right? Dan, you ready for this? I got the bunny hat. I've got the con-approved hat. And the other option is the shark hat.
See, Dave knows what's up. He got something spooky appropriate to wear for this panel.
I'm trying to tell you, I don't have a spooky hat. The shark hat is as close as we
No, the
get.
spooky hat's good. Like, Jaws is considered to be a bit of a spooky film by some people. So. It is.
It's kind of weird. I was looking up a list of, like, horror TV shows, and there's a lot you're like, that's considered horror?
Yeah.
Yes.
Different strokes.
It is very much different strokes. So, Dave, as half of the chat's heard, and as you know, and as Dan knows, obviously, if you want to say something, just tell me to not shut up, but, you know, just talk, because, be like, Angela, because I will to talk.
Just zip it! Just zip it!
Zip it! Yeah. So, as I was saying, I do have a PowerPoint. Do we want to start with the PowerPoint, or should we discuss horror and then throw the PowerPoint up?
I mean, I thought that's what the PowerPoint was for.
Yeah, it is. I was joking. But
regardless of what you have to say, Dan, we're going to go ahead with the PowerPoint because she's just so freaking anxious.
Because it's awesome!
I mean, look, it's got clip art.
Wow. I know! Awesome? I went all out on the clip art, I will have you know. This is a little weird for me because I can't see you guys on the computer. I can only see you kind of all on my phone, so I'm...
Everybody make faces at her.
Yeah, definitely make faces at me because I really can't see anything. Okay, so this is called my favorite horror shows and movies, and really just horror in general, because I'm a self-serving person. However, this is a very broad splatter shot of horror stuff, and the one thing I don't have on here, Dan, which I'm hoping you will sort of broaden our perspective on here, is horror games, because I hate being scared when
I got you, girl. Don't you worry.
Good, because that's really not my jam. I'm not into horror games. I don't like being scared when it's that immersive. I know this is contentious. I only tried to play a little bit of Half-Life, but the jump scares turned me off of all horror games forever. I can't handle it. I tried to rabbit.
Wow, if you don't have the stomach for Half-Life, girl.
It was a video game, okay? It's different. All right, so that being said, we're here to talk about why horror is great, why do we like to be scared, and what is horror? Not necessarily in that order, just these are the topics of conversation I thought were the most appropriate.
Gotcha.
And so we can break it down. What I would like to point out is the very first point was actually my partner, Matt. This was his wonderful way of framing it, which blew my mind because I was going to go on this big rambling tangent, and he just like succinctly said it's things that target the audience. I was like, fuck me sideways. That is so true and smart. Jeez. Anyways, so he kind of just encased the whole panel. That's it, guys. We are done.
Yep.
that was the panel. That's
Wrapped it up. 5 minutes. That's got to be a record.
Yep, we're good. Done. Sorry, guys. We out. So there are obviously other parts to this. There are things that obviously scare us. Things that trigger our fight or flight, and sometimes our fuck response. Kind of up in the air. Things that are unknown or unknowable. Fear of the other. And the reason there's a big contextual part to this, because as an academic, you understand that the lens of the other is quite racist in history, but the idea in science also carries that over a little bit, like in science fiction and fantasy, where it's like some other thing, some other creature, some other whatever. And so that's actually a huge part of horror because it's something we don't understand. Who's changing settings?
Lindsay is.
Oh, good. Hi, Lindsay.
Or Dave is, rather, who is basically just Lindsay.
Is it not showing? Is it not showing my?
No, it's showing it. You're good. You're good.
No, we see it. We see it. That was my bad.
Oh, okay. Great. Because on my screen, it looks like you guys are still seeing just my open screen PowerPoint presentation.
Nope, you're good. Carry on.
Okay, great. Anyways, things that are socially reprehensible or taboo. Things that challenge our sense of being on the top of the food chain, aka when we get hunted, like Predator and things like that. Existentialism, that is always horrific. Our own subjective lived experiences and triggers, and also adjective horror, aka all of the subgenres that we would associate as horror or horror adjacent. So that could be like action horror, sci-fi horror, whatever horror, just like add an adjective in that version of horror.
Yep. By that definition, Jaws is a horror. You're absolutely
You are
right.
correct.
Therefore, Angela's hat is relevant. Also, also, Angela, we didn't exactly understand your question. If you're asking if the slideshow is advancing, it's not. It's still on the title
See,
page.
that's what I meant.
I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. I still love you.
Again, I've been shaking my head around for the last hour.
Again, I just don't know why it wasn't sharing. And I don't really know how to make that
I mean, it was
better.
sharing. We could see it, but it just wasn't.
We could see it, but it wasn't advancing. It was
Yeah, I know.
frozen in horror.
Where you gotta.
It was so scary. The PowerPoint was so scary that it scared itself.
I mean, it was suspenseful.
Not advancing.
It was suspenseful.
Okay, now you're on a slide.
didn't
Why
know
is
what was
horror
next.
great?
There we
And so
go.
on.
Right. So we may just have to look at this in presenter in like my version of it. So I'm sorry about that. So
That's
that
fine.
was what I just ran through. This was the list that y'all were supposed to see.
Hey, there's actually a
That's
list.
the breakdown. Yep.
That's the breakdown. What is horror? Who knew?
Yeah. I like how you have the first point in full capitalization. It
Yes,
feel like it's missing like 7 or 8 exclamation marks.
At least.
Well, here, you know what? Because we're in presenter mode, I can change that.
This has turned into a panel of Angela live editing her PowerPoint
or little
presentation.
like, can you do like little like knife gifs along the way?
Oh, you know, I could, but that would be more clip art, and I think Dan's soul might actually leave his body at that point.
That's why keyboards need emoticon buttons.
Right.
It's true. I'm sad though, because now my animations aren't gonna work. Ah, worst. Okay, that's fine. That's okay. I will survive.
Was it like 90s tastic, like Giphy?
I mean, kinda. Yeah.
Really bit crunch like GeoCities website rotating 3D graphics.
No, I did think
Letters
about that.
coming at you at the screen.
Listen, I
Yep.
literally made this an hour before the show, okay? So this is the list of most adjective horror that you will run into.
What
right?
is adjective horror?
The thing we just talked about where you add something plus horror. So medical horror, body horror.
Horror subgenres. I see what you mean.
Yes, adjectives.
Psychological
That
horror.
was a different way to say
Yes.
it.
Torture, cannibalism, you know, fight, flight, or fuck. All those funny, uncanny valley, sublime, internalized horror. The list is endless because it is literally just whatever.
I mean, it has 3 etceteras at the end there. It better be endless.
That's
It is
endless.
endless.
That's a lot of endless.
You can have any type of horror you want, Dan. You should
know.
know this.
Everything should be horror. You have no idea. Like, the amount of times on a daily basis that I say to myself, why hasn't nobody made blank but as a horror movie?
like
right?
the government.
I'm pretty sure on that's horrific enough, but I'm pretty sure on a gaming stream a couple of weeks ago I was like, why doesn't nobody made a Katamari Damacy game but as a horror game?
Oh my god. Isn't that just the blob?
You're
The blob.
right.
That would be the
I
blob.
didn't think of that.
It's the blob!
Mind
Dan, come
blown.
on.
Oh man.
But it doesn't have all the
Turn in my
stuff
horror.
like stuck to it though, because that
That's
would be hilarious.
true, right? Yeah, somebody needs to make the Blob 2024 and
Yeah.
just like use all the CG Industrial Light and Magic power to make all the stuff.
But you'd have like trees and skeletons like stuck to it.
yes.
No. So, interestingly enough, Dave, when you bring up government horror, this is another part of the conversation where Matt blew my mind in one sentence or less. He said, we were talking about whether or not like dystopias count as horror, because I thought, I don't know, I'm up in the air about it now, that Diablo 4 would count as a horror video game, but it really doesn't because it's dystopian. And what Matt said very smartly was, dystopias are horrifying because of what they say about society.
That's
So they're
what
not-
all horror is.
Mhm.
But it's not, though, because sometimes there's not actually a societal implication to horror.
No, but what I'm saying is that all horror is a reflection on societal, like you were saying earlier, societal
Things that
taboos or
unnerve
whatever.
us. Things
Yeah,
that
like all the
unnerve
old
us.
classic monsters, like the Universal monsters, Dracula, Wolfman, the Invisible Man, everything. That's all preying off of primal human instincts. You know, the Wolfman is preying
But
on
that's
the
not
animalistics.
That's not society. That is what we feel as humans.
Okay, fair
Yeah,
enough.
but we
yeah.
could project those monsters as like those monsters are reflections of society, though, in some shape or form.
Well,
Can
in
I
the 50s, it was much more personalized. It wasn't until we got to the 80s that society became big and powerful enough that we were like,
I mean,
oh,
half
wow,
of
that's
society
super
are
scary.
zombies already, so it's like
True.
It's true.
That's
as-
why zombies are the most popular monster. Sorry, I keep you cutting you off.
No, it's okay. As rightfully pointed out in the chat, how about a crooked politician? He's stupid. That ain't news to no more. Very accurate.
Yep.
Very, very accurate.
it's more scary what he's got the capability of doing.
Yeah. Okay, now listen, I was really hoping this would be animated, so you're gonna have to imagine that the whole point of this was that there'd be a million hearts around my...
Okay, this is a horror panel. You're asking people to use their imaginations. Do you want to
Yes!
scare everybody out of the panel?
Because there was supposed to be this whole thing where I hit the enter button a million times, so Hannibal got all the hearts. It was very important, okay?
Could have at least been bloody hearts.
Because I think we all know what Angela's favorite horror IP is.
I mean, I'm just saying, it's pretty great, right? So, yes. So these are the horror movies that I think are sort of quintessential, interesting, various sort of aspects of horror. Obviously, I have a big love story for Mike Flanagan. Over in one corner, Hannibal is obviously very important.
Yeah.
You know, some classics, The Exorcist, Hellraiser, Event Horizon, which is actually Hellraiser Part 5.
Yeah, I got my Dead Space shirt on. Hellraiser in space. Event Horizon represent.
Nice.
I know, because that's what
You want to talk about horror video games, though. If you've not played Dead Space, because I doubt you can handle it and everything, but it is basically Event Horizon, the video game.
That's cool.
Really?
That's
Yes.
Is it like jump horror?
Oh no, it's very startling. Like whenever the monsters are on screen, there's big like stingers, and it's not a lot of subtlety to it. So it's not that, but it's the plot of it is you're going to a spaceship that is sent out a distress call. You get there, all the crew is dead. There's fucking monsters everywhere, and you know you don't know where they came from. There's like a religious cult on board that may have like been doing some shady shit or whatever that got them there or whatever and everything.
No, it's got
and
all the
everybody
things.
that's played it.
Everybody
That's played it has said it is Event Horizon, the video game.
See, it sounds like I would love the story, but I would not be able to handle that level of immersion. That's
well, what
really
I would suggest you do is do what everybody else who hasn't played it does. Just find some Let's Plays on YouTube.
and watch those.
Yeah.
Because it kind of also sounds a little bit like Pandorum. Because Pandorum is also great horror in space. And,
I mean, space is the ultimate place for horror.
Right? It
Like
sure
Alien
is.
taught us that back in the 70s.
Oh, yeah.
It is the ultimate place for horror.
Hell
Because
yeah.
you are isolated, everything outside of your immediate area will kill you in a second.
Yep.
How do you get more horrific than that?
Well, and so again, I'm just using that. I wish he didn't want to be on screen, and that is very fair or part of the conversation. But he pointed out that Alien, the first one, is suspense horror, but
It is?
Aliens is
Action horror. Yep.
Yeah.
That's because of the two different directors. Ridley Scott did the first one, and he was going for slow burn, atmospheric, Geiger-esque art style and everything. James Cameron, on the other hand, he could direct the shit out of an action movie. We've all seen Terminator, we've all seen Aliens, et cetera, et cetera. So he will direct the shit out of. That's why it was a roller coaster. That's why the music. That's why the trailer music for Aliens has been used in every trailer. That you've seen before. But everybody uses the Ridley Scott music for like suspense. In fact, if you play the remake of Dead Space that came out last year, half of the music stings in that. Everybody who hears them is like, that's just straight out of Alien.
You want to know something freaking wild? I whistle the Aliens theme song all the time when I am thinking. Like, it's just like that weird little like musical interlude. It's just stuck in my head permanently. It is a genius masterpiece.
I thought you just had circus music going on in there.
I do. Often it is the Benny Hill theme song, but sometimes it's also Alien.
But isn't it funny sometimes how often circus music is used as a horror motif? Like if you just distort the music just a little bit, like everybody can think of like an ice cream truck that's like a little busted or whatever, and it sounds horrible.
That whole thing about slowing music down though drives me up the fucking wall. Woof! That whole time for like the I don't know what was it.
But
like,
that makes it suspenseful, like the Jack in the Box when you do.
No, it doesn't.
Well, okay, sometimes like the circus music thing sometimes, but when they took Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children or whatever, and they took Mama Cass's "It's a New World Coming" and they slowed it way the shit down. I was like, that's brutal.
See, slowing it down is a bit of a lazy thing, but I hate to keep going back to this because I'm wearing the shirt and everything. But you know what Dead Space did? They did a twisted ass you get the premise of it, right? It's space horror and everything. You know what they did for that as the theme for the trailer? They did a twisted like nightmare singing of "Twinkle Twinkle Little Star."
like in
Oh,
a
yeah,
kid voice, like in that little
No,
child.
and just like a lullaby voice and everything, but you just lay that over top of like a trailer of like some spindly monster coming down a hallway after you and everything, and it worked. So yeah, I agree. Slowing the music down and everything, it's hit or miss or whatever, but genius decision making of like what to pair with what imagery, the juxtaposition of the very innocent with the very not innocent,
and that works too
work.
though in games like Fallout. Like Fallout, the soundtrack. I'd never played Fallout, but Matt really likes it, and I will be listening to it, and he'll have the radio going in the background of that. Creeps me the shit out. You hear him blowing things up and fighting and dying, and then in the background, it's like, oh, what a great day.
Another game that did that really, really well, BioShock. Because it's set in the 60s, right? So it's all like 50s,
50s
radio
music,
tunes over this horrific, like, underwater nightmare of things that are happening.
Nope. Underwater. Oh, you know what I didn't put on here was Sphere. I freaking love that movie.
Sphere is a good one.
Yeah, and it's a great book too, actually. But I can't. The underwater thing makes me.
It's number 2 after Space in terms of
it's the
hostile.
same concept.
Yeah, everything outside of your immediate space will kill the shit out of you, including the actual environment itself. Space will do it faster, but water, like 1,000 leagues under the sea, will do it just as fast.
Oh yes. Yeah, something about the pressure, if nothing else, in the bajillion tons of water above you.
You're getting some special effects here.
Yeah.
Oh, Lindsay's doing her light switch rave.
Well, and so then, if we're going to talk about, though, things that are just, like, brilliantly produced, I do think we should give a massive call out to Mike Flanagan, because while not everything he's done has been, like, top of the list, I have to say, like, The Haunting of Hill House, The Fall of Usher...
His worst is better than some directors' best.
Right?
Yeah.
I didn't watch Midnight Club. I couldn't get into it. Too many teenager hormone things going on.
No, but he's the modern Stephen King is the best way that I can put it, because Stephen King hasn't exactly aged well, but he can do, like, he does a lot with the material that he does. Like the Haunting series are long. House of Usher was fantastic, and some of the other, like, he did also, like, he did Dr. Sleep, which was a Stephen King book.
I know. He did the follow-up. It's the follow-up to The Shining, right?
It is.
What happened to that kid.
Yeah, and he made it, like, the film itself is as much of a sequel to Kubrick's film, The Shining, as the book was a sequel to King's book, The Shining.
Well, yeah, and I think he's just got a really interesting concept, because I think he understands that, yes, you target the audience, but he also understands sort of these other things, like sort of sublime horror, things that get under your skin, and they may not be horrifying right away, but they end up being really fucking scary. And on top of the, like, in your face, but some of it's gory, but a lot of it isn't, like a lot of it is just, like, horrific because of the people, which he's just very good at.
He's up there with, I can't remember the director, but also the director that did The Witch and The Lighthouse and
oh my god, The Witch. I didn't put that on here either. I think that
was the one movie that I saw in the theater, and I walked out shooken up. Yeah, I don't shake up easily from horror movies, but The Witch disturbed me. Yeah,
The Witch was super good. That one surprised me too, because usually when they do, like, historical horror, I have to say one of my favorite worst. I didn't put this in a panel or in a slide, and I should have. One of my favorite worst horror movies ever is Ravenous. Have you ever seen Ravenous?
Ravenous is disturbing, yeah.
It is fucked up, but it is by far one of the funniest freaking movies out there, because it was this huge cannibal chase and they're playing it to banjo music.
Yep.
It's amazing.
And that hits hard for some of us older film goers who remember stuff like Deliverance and shit like that and everything. And we're just like, okay, this is bringing back some not at all pleasant feels. Ugh.
Yeah, the original See, I didn't put a lot of gore porn in here because in terms of style, I'm not a huge gore porn fan. Like, there's something to be said for the originals.
There's a time and place for it, but it's not everybody's bag.
No, the Texas Chainsaw, like the Saw movies too, great. Some of it is really great writing, but I'm just not into it because that type of body horror, I will be throwing up before I ever make it through the movie.
And that's the point of the directors, and they do that knowing that they're not going to hit every target. That's why horror films are so hard to produce for people who are really passionate about it, because producers will be like, nah, we can't make this and everything. Can you dumb it down or water it down and everything, make it PG-13 and then get it to a bigger audience, whatever. And it's like hardcore horror directors like Eli Roth or whatever like that, they want to go full tilt and whatever, and more power to them. And there is an audience out there. It's just not the one that's going to break 1, 2, 3, 5 million and on the Friday night, Saturday night box office open release.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and the other thing too that I wanted to point out, and that's on here, is sort of like the undead version thing. So like Train to Busan, The Girl with All the Gifts, The Strain, that's like also a whole different style of horror, because sometimes it's just like zombies, like what is it, Army of the Dead or whatever that awful Zack Snyder movie was. That wasn't horror. That was cheese.
Yeah, like zombies are the most popular monster in movies,
and
just because they're so because they're so much like people. Like they nail exactly that primal urge that we all have to just want to like go out there with a sledgehammer and just beat the hell out of everybody that's in our way, not because like they've smited us or they've done anything, slated us or anything like that, just because they're there and we don't know who they are, and just get out of our way. You know, I'm trying to get to work.
You've seen the Korean TV show Kingdom? I was actually really surprised by that. It was like a zombie horror, like where anime come to life. It was kind of fun.
Wasn't it though? Didn't it get canceled because like one of the actors died? Like, and there was a lot of background to that, because I started watching it and I loved it, and then it like just ended abruptly.
Well, it had 2 seasons.
No, I know, but like the story. I mean, like they were just like, oh, done. Sorry.
Somebody in the chat is like somebody in the chat's like, I don't like zombie movie, burned out by oversaturation. That's fair. You know, Walking Dead is largely to blame for that, because it just became the biggest thing ever for like a good stretch of however many seasons it was. And there like that was, you know, it showed up right when zombies were already the biggest thing in video games, especially in movies or whatever. That's what burned everybody out. And it's unfortunate, because I happen to really like the comics that it's based off of, as well as the Telltale games, but that's a whole different conversation.
I never really read Walking Dead. I have a couple, I think, of the trades, and they were okay, but they weren't my cup of tea per se. But like, so The Girl with All the Gifts is a book by Mike Carey, and it's a phenomenal book. And I think the movie translation is just as good as the book, which is why I threw it in here, because it deals with the idea of zombies in a really interesting way. It was sort of one of the first mainstream things to deal with the idea of sort of being a parasitic zombie, which is super cool, and I love that. But I also hate the parasite fungus thing. Like, whoa, can't handle that. That is a real fuck up for me, but it's fine. I love that book. Just, whoa.
It's a real thing.
Yeah, I know.
It is a real thing.
Okay,
so are zombies if you go down to the insect world.
Cordyceps or whatever the fuck. I just the zombie ant and the zombie bird and
the zombie birds.
It's in the Kurosagi Corpse Delivery Service manga series. I also can't handle that, because they all have like the fucking parasite eyes, and then just can't. Anyways, it's fine.
I get a kick out of like zombie stuff that does something interesting with it, like the ones that try to do like either comedies like Shaun of the Dead or romantic stuff like Warm Bodies. You know,
or
something
Fido
is good. Yes, Fido's good too as well. Yeah, like something that, you know, does something like that. Or Zombieland was another good example of doing something fun with the zombie apocalypse. You know, that's where the interest lies. That's where more interest goes, because just doing straight up like Romero buried, for lack of a better term, the straight up zombie apocalypse stuff 70 years ago.
I know.
And it's just like Walking Dead brought it back because it became hugely popular, and that's fine and everything, but it doesn't exactly elevate this series the way that other stuff does.
No, it does not, which is very sad. And you know, I think Train to Busan was interesting too. Not that the zombies were new or interesting, but how they dealt with it societally, I think was like.
Train to Busan strikes me as one of those zombie stories where it's not about the zombies. That's kind of what Walking Dead did too, but Train to Busan I think was a much more concentrated thing, because in any good zombie stories, the zombies are the least interesting part. They're just the force of nature that's forcing this situation to happen. It's always about the people. That's also why Walking Dead did so well, is because the cast and the characters and everything were well developed and everything. But Train to Busan does it also very interestingly, because the characters, the action scenes are also really well done. Like, you've got dudes beating up zombies and fist fighting zombies and everything. That's not usually something that you see. So it's something different or whatever, especially to a Western audience. It's something else. It's something different, because everybody gets what a zombie horde is. So, you know, just mowing it down with machine guns or whatever is not going to sell any movies. But if you do something interesting with it, it's going to elevate it a little bit.
I think Resident Evil, like the movie verse is hit and miss. Some of the movies are super good. Some of the movies are not. I have a very...
Resident Evil as a movie franchise, if you're talking about the Wes Anderson movies, they live and die off of the charisma of the leading lady. Like
yes,
Milla
because
Jovovich
Milla
was
Jovovich is
the
amazing.
reason to
I
see
know.
any of those movies.
But she did it. So I have a soft spot for the first one because really that was like the first like video game movie I guess I could say. I mean, I lived under a rock. To be fair, there's still a lot of things I've never seen because I just we talked about this earlier a little bit behind the scenes. I have the attention span of a fruit fly, if that's not perfectly obvious to everybody.
You mean you didn't watch the Super Mario movie in the 90s like the rest of us did?
No, I did not. And I also don't sit down and just watch TV series for shits and giggles. It's why I really like Mike Flanagan because I can actually like engage with the series that is that short. Same with Hannibal. I could
that was the one thing that I really loved about House of Usher, along with the other millions of things that I loved about House of Usher, was that you could start it and finish it in the course of like a weekend, and it is a complete story. And it doesn't have any loose ends at the end. It is done by the time you get to the end of it, and I love that.
That and Ruth Codd and Bruce Greenwood. Let's just talk about
Fair enough, yeah.
And also Mark Hamill. You know,
right?
Great, just great.
Yep,
super good.
Super against type for him, and it was amazing.
Amazing. It was so good. Anyways, I loved it. Super great on that one. Has anybody here actually seen The Cell besides me? Because I watch it like, once a week.
Vincent D'Onofrio was amazing in The Cell.
Right?
He's
and Vince Vaughn.
That movie is so like everybody trashes it because it was like it's what's the director's name? I know it's like he's got like one of those like Madonna or Cher names.
No.
He's got like a single name. Anyway, but he also did something like he did The Immortals, which was that 300 knockoff or whatever. But he's such a great artistic director, and everybody panned The Cell because you know, lover or hater, you know, Jennifer Lopez was in it. But Vincent D'Onofrio was in it doing his Vincent D'Onofrio thing, and he was fantastic.
So good. And also Vince Vaughn's Hot Minute in Horror.
Yeah, Vince Vaughn is also hit and miss and everything. Like he was good in that, and he was good in Freaky, which was basically Freaky Friday, but as a slasher movie. If you haven't seen that, I would highly. It's made by the same. It's made by the same director that did Happy Death Day to You.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Fascinating.
Yeah. You know how Happy Death Day to You was basically Groundhog Day, but a slasher? Freaky is basically Freaky Friday, but a slasher.
Fascinating.
Same director. It is very good. Highly recommended.
Okay.
Tarsem Singh Dondwar apparently was the director.
Bless you.
Tarson. That's his name that he goes by.
Tarsem.
Yeah.
Tarsem Singh.
He started out as a music video director, like most artistic directors do, and then he graduated. He did that. He did Immortals, which was a knockoff of 300 shortly after 300 came the thing. And yeah, I love The Cell, even though I recognize it is not a perfect movie, but it has got some weird ass visual imagery in it that is so unique in the horror landscape. It needs to be.
This is the other thing that we haven't really talked about yet. I don't think horror has to be perfect because I would say that movie, visually, stylistically, and also from a narrative point of view, is pretty cut and dry. Like they don't. They wrap it up, but also
you go into the mind of a serial killer. That's not very hard to figure out. Silence of the Lambs did that back in the 80s. They just did it with better performers and a better director. No offense to Tarzan.
No, I mean they did and they didn't. I think it's very different though because I think like in this one, obviously there's that pastiche of sci-fi with the whole like mask thing and then all the drugs and blood. Like they were a little ahead of your time, I think, in sort of the cerebral aspect of it. Yeah. But I do think, you're not wrong in terms of, yes, it's getting into the mind of a serial killer. It's just sort of like how they did that, which I think is
Cell reminds me of like, I saw Cell long before I got into anime, and then I started watching like sci-fi anime, and I'm just like, wow. So this is where Tarzan got all his ideas from. Got it.
Yeah.
You're not wrong. Yeah. Okay. Well, obviously, like I shout out to Carrie because Carrie's just great. She's my first murder babe heartthrob. What can I say?
Another King story. Like King, I think is across the spectrum, and he is very hit and miss because he's just been around forever.
Well, he is hit and miss. I mean, actually, I do love. I like the book, and by like I mean it's like been seared into my subconscious. But
again, that's another one where it's like it's not about the horror is just a stand-in for. It's a story about puberty. You
actually mean the book? I was trying to think of the name of the book. To be perfectly honest, what is the one about the vampires that I am now forgetting? I burned a copy of it.
If you're talking about a Stephen King story about vampires, you're going to have to narrow it down.
Yeah, I know. Thank you, Dan.
Night Shift might be it.
No, it's not Night Shift. I will Google it.
Night Shift was a collection of short stories.
It was.
It might be sometimes they come back or something like that.
No.
Salem's Lot?
Salem's Lot.
Oh, was that it? Okay.
That was it. So I read it when I was about 10. You know what you shouldn't read when you're 10? Salem's Lot.
That's because that's like saying you shouldn't read it when you're 10 because it's 1,000 fucking pages long.
That was not
Kind
the
of a big
deterrent you
story,
think it is.
Yeah.
That is not the deterrent you think it is. That
No.
was actually great. I got it for free for volunteering. They're like, yeah, you can pick any book you want. So I chose Salem's Lot. I thought it looked great. It had this like cool embossed cover of this like kid's face with like a drip of blood coming down. I was like, yeah, this is hardcore. Then I read it, and then I had nightmares for like 3 months. It was fine.
Awesome.
Yeah, super good. Anyways, and obviously the strain is great. Guillermo del Toro. I don't love Crimson Peak, but that's just a me thing. It's fine.
Del Toro stuff really hits for me and everything, but everybody back in like the 2000s was screaming about what was the one with the guy with the eyes on his hands and everything?
Oh, Pan's Labyrinth.
Pan's Labyrinth.
Pan's Labyrinth. Everyone was on about that. I watched that movie and I was just like, this is so mean and cruel.
It is cruel.
It is
cruel.
Horrifying.
Yeah.
But I understand, again, it's like, you go there for the imagery or whatever. Sometimes the story's not going to hit you.
True.
That's how horror works.
Yeah. And really, and that's like, that's interesting too, because that's like a horror fairy tale, which is another wonderful
Where
genre.
Crimson Peak is a gothic horror, as I understand it.
Yeah.
And also, it's Tom Hiddleston just not getting his head out of his ass, which is also fine.
I mean, there's a reason he was cast as Loki.
I know, right? Okay, we're going on to the next one because this one is also going to be fun. Books and other media.
Oh, okay.
So, Creepypasta, obviously the book version of Carrie, The Elementals, these 3 books, which are by Charles DeLint, which are great. The Magnus Archives for a podcast, because Magnus Archives are so freaking great.
Wait a second. You've got Pontypool in there?
Yes, because it's so good.
Is that what the film is based off of?
Yes.
Okay, because the film is amazing.
Yes, the film is amazing. But so Tony Burgess is the author of The N-Body Problem, People Still Live in Cashtown Corners, and Pontypool Changes Everything.
Okay.
And so Pontypool Changes Everything is language horror, which is just, that is so sexy to me.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I loved the film version of Pontypool. I didn't realize that it was based on a book, but I love it. It's like it's one of those movies where I'm just like, it's a great horror movie, and I mentioned it to people, and they're like, "What?" I'm like, nobody I know has heard of it. I'm like, oh man, I need to sit everybody down and watch this thing because it's a nice, like, contained horror story with 3 characters and an amazing hook.
Screening night.
Yep. It's good stuff. People Still Live in Cashtown Corners. If anybody, they're all quite short. None of these books are very long by Tony Burgess over here.
Yep.
They're all quite interesting though and very different. So there's Pontypool Changes Everything, which is language horror. The N-Body Problem is a really messed up sort of weird end of the world cult that gets way out of hand, and they don't know what to do with all the dead bodies, so they start shunting them into space. It's fascinating.
Sounds viable.
Yeah, and then People Still Live in Cashtown.
That sounds exactly like the kind of solution to a problem that the human race would come up with in that situation.
Right?
Specifically the Soviets.
Specifically pretty much anybody at this point.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to deal with garbage or dead bodies.
Exactly. Like everybody always says, how do we deal with all this like garbage and nuclear waste and everything like that? Let's throw it into space.
To the sun.
They don't consider that it would be more harmful to do that.
Yeah.
Everybody just thinks that just put it in a rocket and fire it into space. Yeah.
Now that we're talking, I keep thinking of all these other great movies that I really love, like Sunshine. Sunshine is an excellent story.
Oh, Sunshine is really good, but it has a shit ending.
Yeah. Does it? I don't know. Yeah. I kind of enjoyed it. It's romantic. I like it. It's fine. Sunshine is great. Anyways, and also that's another one with great music because it almost sounds like Nessa Dorum, but it's not. It's like the weird inverted version of that, and it's great. What was it? Oh yeah, People Still Live at Cashtown Corners. So that novella is like into the mind of a serial killer, but it's like 72 hours with a serial killer when he's done something horrible. And it's Cashtown Corners, Ontario, which is not that far from Collingwood, just in case anybody's curious. So a
lot of this author's stuff takes place in Ontario, I'm assuming?
Pretty much all of it. It's very interesting. He does small town Ontario writing.
Yep.
That's true horror right there.
Yeah. Says the man that has probably explored more of small town Ontario than the rest of us.
I'd fight Dave on that one.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, and The Elementals is an older book. It's by Michael McDowell. It's great. It is a weird Southern horror with like some ghosts and some messed up family dynamics. It's quite interesting. And yeah, anyways, so this is open media. Go for it. Other media options, my friends, that are not, well, we can go back to movies too, but you know.
I mean, there's really like, in terms of horror, can we think of mediums besides movies, video games, and books that are big in the horror genre?
Art, music,
like art, yeah, okay, like graphic novels, fair enough. I would still
escape rooms. That's a good one.
Take home escape
rooms.
Podcasts are big. There's a lot of
podcasts is a big one. Absolutely, yes.
Yeah, music, Monster Tea Party. I 100% agree because music sets the mood.
Here's the thing, though. Would you ever listen to a song and be scared?
Well, that goes back to like talking about like a song that you know that suddenly becomes weird and distorted and.
Okay,
you know,
so something experimental.
Yeah, something that might creep you out
like,
a little.
I can't, like, anything, like, I think 99% of all, like, I'm including the entire chat, all of our music libraries, all the songs in there, none of it would scare you because it wouldn't be in your music library otherwise, would it?
Yeah.
Like, we don't listen to music to be scared. We listen to music to pump us up or to be excited or be, like, to feel something other than fear. That's one thing that I've always found interesting about the horror medium is that movies, yes, absolutely. Video games, 100%. Books, for sure. Art, sure. But music, I can't think of scary music besides like a CD of like atmospheric Halloween sounds
can I just say,
or whatever.
Nod Buggy in the Twitch stream said the Monster Mash.
Oh yeah, I do have to admit, I have to like stop and let my heart slow down every time I hear that song. Yeah, that's
always,
true.
Always. Yeah, I mean, songs, I don't know, because for me that's interesting because I do listen to some music that is, you know, some black metal music and stuff. Like, it doesn't make you exactly happy, and it does, but I think it's
but metal music and everything, it has energy behind it. It drives you, it pushes you forward. It doesn't like
it's more
make
of a
you
pump up thing, really.
Yeah, it doesn't make you like back off. It makes you want to engage, and that is the antithesis of horror.
Yeah, you're not going to recoil.
The antithesis of certain horror. I know that there's certain horror out there like Freddy versus Jason or whatever that just makes you want to get out of your seat and be like, yeah, slice them up or whatever. Yeah, fine. But I'm saying, you know, if you want something like a movie has scared me, a book has disturbed me. I've seen art that I was just like, oh, that's going to stick with me for a while. I've played video games where I'm like, I need to put the controller down and go lie down for a while. But I've never heard a song where I've been like, I need to turn that off and not listen to that for anymore.
You know, maybe part of that is how we intake the horror too. Seeing it or having a story told to us, like the narrative or the visuals of it or the immersion of it is what makes it scary. And maybe like taking away one of those sensory perceptions removes the act of horror, because like in context, like we were just talking about in the chat here, music can be quite horrific and intentionally horrific, right? There's lots, and not just atmospherically, you know, there's lots of largely unknown, you know, Gregorian chants and classical music that is quite terrifying because that was one of their main ways of like intaking media. But that's really specific, and if you don't know about it or you've never been exposed to it, you wouldn't know that that's meant to scare you.
That's valid. You know what? I take it. Yeah, that's good. I like that. Yeah, you basically laid it out for like chanting old school like stuff.
Yeah, Gregorian chants are fucking
like
scary.
Stuff the old school stuff like that, you know, a modern audience wouldn't like immediately latch onto and everything and just listen to it and be like, oh, what is this? Fair. That's valid. Again, I don't think that's in 99.9% of our libraries, unfortunately.
It's not. I mean, in the chat here, there's some really great... I'm pulling up my phone so I can read it.
Iced Earth's horror show is just metal, okay? I know exactly. That's just metal themed around Halloween monsters. That is not scary. That is just like hardcore heavy metal headbanging stuff. It's not scary.
So, yeah.
Somebody's trolling me in the chat.
That would be Nikki. So Manpans is right. You know, we're talking about like support the horror rather than being the horror.
Yeah.
Nod Buggy said, once listening to the radio in bed in the dead of night, I heard this techno song with the repeating lyric, "Is there anybody out there?" That would be fucking scary.
Yeah, you know what? I actually
Anybody out
just this very second thought of a soundtrack to some video games that I would consider scary music, and that is the Silent Hill 1 soundtrack.
Yes, Silent Hill. Woof.
Because the set, like specifically Silent Hill 1. After Silent Hill 1, they just sort of got into actual like music and mood music, and it's all great because it's all the same music director. But Silent Hill 1 wasn't exactly music, it was just sounds and atmosphere and stuff like that. That is scary.
Sounds would do it.
For sure. Because it's just like industrial sounds off in the distance of like pipes hitting themselves or droning like sounds of like a fan hitting something or whatever and everything.
Well,
Again, I wouldn't consider that like music.
Well, it gives audio to like your imagination. Like if you're walking down a hall and all of a sudden you hear like a ticking, like a weird tapping or a ticking, and you're like, what the hell is that?
Something that's very alien that you can't identify and you can't find the source of. Fair enough. But again, I think we're veering a little further away from the music.
I was going to go back to the music thing, though. So the Exorcist soundtrack is terrifying.
Okay. I think that a lot of people, like somebody also mentioned in the chat, the Obra Dinn soundtrack is very terrifying. But I think a lot of that has to do with association.
Right.
Because you associate it with something that's super scary. Like the Exorcist soundtrack is associated to one of the greatest horror movies of all time. Obra Dinn is very disturbing because you're dealing with dead bodies and how they died and everything like that. So yeah, that can disturb you as well.
That sounds great.
The Obra Dinn is a game by
it's a game.
It's a game about exploring a old 18th century merchant vessel where all the crew is dead, and you have like this pocket watch where you can like warp back in time to see the moment of every crew member's death, and you're like an investigator that's trying to figure out how everybody on the crew died.
Nice.
So it's very. If it was to be turned into a movie, I would want Flanagan helming it. Let's put it that way.
So I was going to say, though, about The Exorcist, if you don't know The Exorcist, but you hear the soundtrack, it's very suspenseful. And I think this is the other thing, is that a lot of music is good at evoking suspense, anxiety, different emotions that aren't horror, but are horror adjacent. So it can scare you eventually, or it can put you in the mindset to be scared or disassociate or something like that.
Horror trailer music is a good example of that sort of thing.
Yeah, I was thinking of horror trailer music, and also actually the music from the background of the TV show of Dracula, the short BBC miniseries. Because first off, I fucking love that show, but also like the weird string, the attenuated like that kind of weird.
But again, now you're getting into like stingers and textures and whatnot. You're getting away from like music,
and especially when they get more and more like busy and more anxious and more like it's just building and building and building and building and building, right?
And that's trailer music, and there's a whole industry behind putting that stuff together and everything. I go back to Aliens, like the trailer music from James Cameron's Aliens. Again, this is more actiony than horror, I admit, but you go back and watch a trailer for Aliens, you'll hear that trailer music. That's been in the background of every trailer that everybody has put together since the beginning of time.
Yeah. Well, and you think about it too, like, if you want to get into actual music that's in scary media to, like we were talking about, any metal music, but then there's some classic rock or some of the softer lullaby stuff that gets co-opted and then, like you say, becomes scary because of association.
Well, even like old classic music gets up there in like not so much fear, but like you said, anticipation. Like you think of like Under the Hall of the Mountain King, for example. That is just a raise, and then it's just a crash at the end. That gets you anxious and pumped up and excited and whatever. It doesn't scare you, but it definitely like again, it draws you in. It doesn't push you back.
It's like angry violin music that just gets more and more angry.
Yeah. Exactly. Well,
you just reminded me, Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho. Think of the violin stings from the beginning of that.
Right? Like it just got more and more angry.
Well, and there's parts too of classical music like Wagner and the Ride of the Valkyries or whatever, anything that was used in Bugs Bunny or something like that. Like you'll have some.
Is it the Bugs Bunny opera? Yes.
But you'll have some sort of
overture.
You'll have a sense memory of it though. This is the thing: is we're exposed to a lot of classical music because it's all free reign. Yeah. And so we don't necessarily understand why we have those associations with music, which I also think is very fascinating. Yeah. For a lot of reasons. And you know, even there's a very popular song that's done by a modern composer, Max Richter. It's called On the Nature of Daylight. And you have heard it in the background of so many movies and never known. It's in the background of Arrival. It's in the background of Shutter Island and a few other ones. And you don't know what it is, but when you hear it, it's got this incredible string set, and you all of a sudden you're kind of sad and you don't know why. But it's because it's been sort of tied to those pieces.
So let me pose this to you then. You just hit on a note that I wanted to maybe pick your brain of and everything. What would be your example then, or something you would go to if somebody were to mention to you the idea of tragic horror?
Ooh, tragic horror.
Because the first place my mind goes to is Silent Hill 2. And I'm sure there's many people
that... Why do you go to Silent Hill 2?
You don't know the story of Silent Hill 2,
I have no fucking clue.
Yeah, it's a story where you get to the end of it and you're just like gutted. It's one of those things that definitely guts you and everything. And it's a very tragic story about a person who's in a very unfortunate situation. And do you know the movie Jacob's Ladder?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, it's kind of like that and everything, where a person who is just being tormented because of something or whatever. And that's the entire story. But you get to the end and you realize it's just this very bitter, tragic situation. But that's the place my mind goes to. But what would you think is tragic horror? I'm trying my best to come up with a movie idea. Like I don't know, The Mist seems a little bit on the nose and everything, because that's an immediate tragic ending and everything. And again, that's King and whatnot. But something that's like, you know, brings you down, like, because
wasn't The Shining kind of like a tragic horror? Like it's kind of
maybe not Kubrick's version, but the book for sure.
The book for sure is. I was gonna say, you know, I would pick Midnight Mass. Actually, I think is pretty tragic.
Okay.
Frankenstein.
But maybe that could also come from the fact that I'm predisposed to think of it as tragic because I was raised Catholic, and I find it very tragic because of how people have been, like, I'm not a practicing Catholic right now, but like how people engaged with their faith out of desperation.
Yeah.
To me is quite tragic.
Yeah. The idea of tragic horror interests me a lot, because you can get to the end of it and you can be like completely gutted and terrified and like you could feel sad for the people involved and everything, but it's also still spooky. And, you know, like when I think of, like, everybody thinks of horror, a lot of people think of horror and they think Halloween, you know, it's trick or treat, it's costumes and whatever. But there's also an element of, you know, horror as a means of dealing with, like, The Babadook was a great example of tragic horror, because it is a story entirely about grief and dealing with grief. But it is one of the scariest movies I think I've ever seen.
Interesting. Okay, so here's the thing, though, is like, I tend to separate my tragedy very differently, and I don't generally watch like a lot of horrific things, because one of the most tragic movies I can actually think of is AI.
Yeah.
Because it was one of the saddest movies on the planet. That kid just wanted to be loved, regardless of whether or not he was.
Yeah, but I don't know that AI has any horror elements to it.
Honestly. Well, it doesn't. That's what I'm saying. Like, I really separate out my tragedy. So that's why I kind of pick Midnight Mass, because to me, Midnight Mass is an excellent example of horror, but it is incredibly tragic in terms of how the community dissolves based around when they're so desperate for faith, and they're so desperate for a better life, and they're so desperate for things just to be good. You know, it's quite pitiable.
It is, but it's also, it gives, as an audience member to stories like that, it feels bad to admit this and everything, but there is that Schadenfreude where, you know, they're sitting there and they're in this horrible situation. Oh my God, thank God that didn't happen to us, those poor people. But boy.
For what's her nuts, the acolyte, the chick that you just love to hate because she is so good at embodying those really wretched characters. Anyways, she I didn't feel one fucking ounce of empathy for that woman. I was quite happy when she burned up. That was great. Love that. But everybody else I felt quite bad for. You know, they were trying. Shit just really went sideways for them.
Yep.
Okay, we are in the last 8 minutes, and I do not have as much time as I wish I did. So, what are our final thoughts on horror, my good friends?
Oh, I will continue to love it. I'm one of those people, one of those twisted ass people that wakes up from a nightmare excited.
Fascinating.
So
I love that.
I love it. I absolutely love it. And I'm that person amongst my friends who tries to push the horror on people, but doesn't try too hard because I know it's not everybody's bag. But when I find somebody who can groove with me on the same wavelength and everything, I'm right there with them. And I want to see more games. I'm excited for they're releasing like a remake of Silent Hill 2 this year. I'm enjoying, like, I've played the remake of Dead Space earlier this year and everything from last year. I love the Resident Evil series. I love the Silent Hill series. You brought me on board to be the gaming guy. I'm just gushing about games right now.
Which is great. Please do.
But I'm digging all of the horror stuff and everything. Like Jordan Peele is one of the best directors of all time because everything that he's done in the horror landscape has been phenomenal, and from a audience and from a voice that you don't see in the horror category and everything, because he's definitely coming from an African American standpoint on horror and everything, and all of his movies reflect that, and I find that so refreshing. So he's everything that he touches turns to gold as far as I'm concerned.
So good and accurate. Love that.
Yeah, he's like there's a movie coming out. It's not exactly a horror movie, but it's an action movie coming out next in a couple of months called Monkey Man. It's basically like a Hindi version of John Wick.
Yep.
That the dude from Slumdog Millionaire is starring and directing in it, and he was just gonna he wanted to do an action like a John Wick movie, and Hollywood was just like no because racism, and so he was just like. So he was just like, okay, fine, I'll just make it myself. And he made it himself, and he was going to sell it to Netflix. And then Jordan Peele saw it, and he was like, no, fuck that. I'm going to get it into theaters under my Monkey Paw production house and everything. And now it's coming out under Universal. And I think that's fantastic. That was tangential. Sorry, throw it back.
No, I love that. Dave, final thoughts on horror?
I don't know. It's just a fun escape from reality's real horror.
Yeah.
Like seeing a lot of this stuff other than actually seeing real zombies. But I mean, like... I don't know. You talk about gore and all that. I mean, like that's my life. So it's like seeing it in a kind of in a funny way. Like I'm one of those people that I laugh my way through horror movies a lot of the times because it's just some of it's just so ridiculous.
That's why some of the best horror movies are comedy. Like you look at any of the old,
so funny.
Everybody loves Shaun of the Dead because it's a comedy on horror.
Yeah, just like it's like just seeing mechanics of horror and just like I don't know, like I said, like I see it in the real life, so it's like for me it's just funny.
You know, we didn't, and I'm sorry we couldn't have this panel go longer. We didn't really get a chance to dive into like existentialism because I do think horror is a very valid form of escapism.
Yep.
Dave, obviously, with your day job, with my day job, with the way that things go, like I love horror as like a coping mechanism. Personally, it's why I'm very picky about my horror because I'm looking to fulfill a need with that story generally. And some of it's great when it's funny. Like some horrors, like Shaun of the Dead, Fido, quite a few other ones are just great. To be honest, they're just really good.
Yep.
Obviously, we've talked a lot about how I feel about horror, and you know, at the end of the day, like I can appreciate horror a lot for what it is. You know, I've worked in publishing. I've done a lot of work in and around the idea of horror. But when I go to read a story or intake it through like creepypasta on YouTube, because I love listening to like different like Dark Somnium and like a few other channels that are really good at presenting these awesome horror stories, I'm looking to intake an escapist form of horror. I don't want it to relate to me personally. I want there to be a really good narrative.
This explains why you're so picky, because some horror will hit you right in your bones and everything. And that could be harsh.
On a personal level, I don't need to relive my trauma. Like, you know, it's funny to me that Midnight Mass I really enjoyed because I was raised Catholic. I was like, I don't think I'm going to like this. And I was like, oh my God, I love this. This is amazing.
Indeed.
But yeah. Anywho, I appreciate everybody that came out to the panel. This is the final slide. Again, it was supposed to be animated, so you're ding, love
just use your imagination, everybody.
Use your imagination. This is yes, thank you all for being here. Loved it. Tomorrow night, I am hosting another panel, which is villains that deserve better versus heroes that really suck. And there will be diagrams, and there will be ideally animations. Apparently, I have to put everything in Google Slides, so it will be a fully functional panel tomorrow.
And as somebody who has been sitting by in the staff room or whatever, let me tell you guys, she has opinions.
I do have opinions, and those are mostly, I shouldn't say all, most of them are up for discussion. There is one specific group that is not up for discussion. And that is
Y'all have to tune into the panel to find out what it is.
Woo! Okay, thank y'all for being here. See y'all tomorrow. Peace and love and horror. Whoop whoop.